Oh my god. I was dueling with a door wedge earlier and bouncing his shots. That's blowed my mind. I was angled a little bit though too. Well, looks like my time's up with the Yag mouse. But I have the Yag Tiger. That's the next best thing, right?
I have no idea.
Me neither.
I'm just agreeing because it sounds like a good idea.
Me too. I'll be honest. I shouldn't have moved forward like I did. I ran into the same conundrum in Tank Sim, and I didn't move forward, and I benefited from it. But here, I'm like, I'll just push to him, he'll be alright. And I get flank shot. Which I know I can't do much about in a mouse. Because it's like an SPG, you can only do GG, enemy team refuses to move anywhere. For a most part. Oh man, that guy... Well, I saved the door wedge. I think it was the same one that I called rude. You know? Someone said something about War Thunder having terrible traction. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
They introduced that slide mechanic.
Yeah, but that happens in real life.
Oh.
I've seen it. In fact, I can
Why does all of this look like a fucking bad idea?
Are you at the electric place?
Well, there's this...
Okay, so I have this clip I'm gonna send you of some Russian guys driving a T-70, T-50, I don't know what the fuck it is. And he comes in and drifts across this concrete surface. Because I guess they don't have anything else better to do. You know, I was entertained by it. I'm gonna dig it out of my my ass and just get my pictures. Come on, Leopard. You can do it. I believe in you.
Well, that took care of that.
He's using his cannon to shoot a wall that he could drive through. Oh fuck, he did it. Oh my god, someone just bounced off the top of my tank on the side. Oh, someone just tried to shoot me from the side and bounced off the top of my tank. That happens to me kind of often when I play Germany. It's like they see me and get scared or something. I don't know. You know? Here you go. I think I think you'll like this picture. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong picture. Here you go. Alright, I'm gonna send you that picture. I'm gonna send you that clip real quick. It's actually nice. That's part of why I wanted to show you. I haven't noticed any major difference. The mechanics of the game are really about the same when it comes to driving. Nothing has happened that made me go, well, that's crazy. That don't make any damn sense. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I have no clue. They're doing crazy talk for all I'm concerned.
This is in this fucking room.
I can join you if you want some help.
Um, that's up to you.
I'm guessing you don't want me to.
Oh, I don't care at all. I'm just much further along in the story. So if you don't want spoilers,
I'm thinking. I mean, I kind of don't care, but at the same time, I don't know. Let me focus on finding this clip real quick.
I'll run the nuts. Sorry, lay down and be dead.
And maybe this is it. Oh, no, that's not it at all. That's not it. Still kind of funny, though. Oh, I forgot about that one. It's like a reverse Jaws thing. Instead of the shark Ripping at the guy on the boat. There's a guy ripping at a shark on a boat.
Reverse Jaws.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd have to send it to you on Steam if you want to see it. I forgot about some of this stuff. It's a GIF image. My friend Seth shared that with me. He doesn't do shit posting or anything like that, so it's interesting if he sends it to me, or fun. There you go. I'm still looking for the tank video clip. Oh, I found it. Here it is. The tank drifting clip. There you go. You got the reverse draws and the tank drifting clip. Hope you enjoy it.
What the fuck?
I had to watch it a few times to really take it in, I'll be honest with you. But I love it.
Jesus Christ. That fucking tank skid was serious, though.
Yep. Someone holding a camcorder. It's somewhere in Russia.
Somewhere in Russia after a lot of vodka.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine that actually drove a tank Abrams Nordic, and I showed that to him, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fun." He so he would know. He drove tanks. He drove the Abrams, and he loved that video. He didn't say it was fake or anything. He said he acknowledged that it was a real thing that you can do with tanks. Um, I think that was like an anniversary thing or something with like the German dudes coming through, or they did it for like a movie or event or something. You know,
Oh, okay.
I think it was like a reenactment anniversary thing or some shit. Because I know that they do that in some places for fun, to try and remembrance sort of thing. I think it was a mixture of both. I think it was like an anniversary and a movie thing, honestly. But I don't know. I don't remember. But I thought it was kind of funny. That guy gets up in the camera. and then and then you see the lady over there acting like she's panicking. That's what got me thinking that it was for like an event thing. Because I know that they have like different events in Europe. Like there's this one event where they drive like I think like 50 kilometers. They line up as many allied vehicles as they can, and it's to commemorate, remembrance, the journey of the preparations for D-Day journey or some shit like that.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, they have like all they have like shit tons of events. They even have like a D-Day landing event where they fly and parachute out of planes.
Cool as shit, though.
Yeah, yeah. And then they have like one other event where they take a B-17 and then fly a Spitfire and a Hurricane with it over an airfield in
That's
Europe.
sweet.
Yeah, you can find all kinds of footage of stuff. They even have like a remembrance event where they captured Tiger 151 or something like that. I forgot what it was. One of the last working tiger in existence. Because all the others are messed up. There's this one tiger that nobody can figure out what it is. It has no markings, there's no identification, and it's not shaped like a regular tiger. And nobody's, to this day, it's still a mystery of what the fuck it is. And it's valuable find. It's a valuable thing. There's 3 Horton 229s. Two of them were assembled. One or two. The other one is not. The parts are laying around.
Oh man, I didn't notice that you were coming. But I have a challenger that's been waiting for you. I know you've been looking for Paul.
I don't know what they did with the mouse prototype.
Guess what I had done to him? What have you done with Paul? Oh man, didn't I tell you? I turn him to my image. Now since he's under my control, I command him with whoever I want.
This is just my accumulated knowledge over the years of studying all this stuff.
Destroy him.
And I've also listened to and read a lot of interviews because there's like a
Okay.
ton. There's like a lot of interviews that they've taken in because a lot of these people are dying off with all of these different experiences of the war. And they want to save and commemorate this knowledge and save it
That's
back.
really.
And they're
Why
all
wouldn't you?
a lot of them are great stories, and that's part of why I know certain little details about how certain things are done. So yeah, like there's this one story I heard where this tanker, an American tanker, got fucked. Tank was fucked. So him and one other person survived. The gunner and then one other guy survived from the Sherman. And they crawled out and they saw what they thought was a German officer. They shot him. Then all of a sudden, like a whole group of Germans come out and they're like, "You shot that man. We saw you." And he's like, "Oh no, I don't know nothing. We didn't shoot nobody." And then he's like, "Oh God, we're gonna die now." Well, the officer smiled at him and said, "Well, that's war, I suppose." And this guy, by the way, the guy telling the story was actually bleeding badly out of his arm. And he's in so much pain, so they take him to a hospital nearby, a German hospital. And there's this part where they're trying to get him situated, trying to find room to put him. And he's like, "Oh, can you give me some morphine?" And the officer gets mad. He's like, "Don't you Americans have everything? Come on, man." So the officer finds morphine for him, and he wakes up in a hospital bed. And they were taking really good care of him too, you know. And the officer's still there, by the way. And the officer comes in one day and he's like, "Oh, your buddies are here. Your American friends are here, all excited." And the German officer helped him out and got the Americans that were coming through to come in and get them, you know. And he said that was the last he saw of those guys. And I was like, wow, that's such
good.
an interesting story. And then there's this other really interesting story. This guy was a noob. He was like private. And there's this part where his group, and there's like this field of really tall grass, and they're real nervous about crossing over it in the open. So So he says something. He's like, well, somebody's got to go take a look. He's like, well, all right, I'll do it. He goes over there, and I forget what he does, but he does something. He doesn't shoot or nothing like that. And, like, a shit ton of Germans, soldiers, officers, like, it wasn't just like a platoon or a division. It's like, oh, shit ton. They all stand up and surrender at the same time. They were nervous. What it was is they were hiding. They were scared of what was going to happen if they just stood up. But once they seen him do whatever he did, I don't remember what it was, they got up and they just surrendered. They even had a white flag that they had made. And he got one of the highest capture rates of any soldier in the war. Or something like that. And he was just a private. He never even shot anybody yet at that point. In Normandy. It is Normandy or somewhere in Europe. It was definitely before Germany. And I thought that was a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it is pretty neat.
One of the
I
most
got a zombie in a bucket.
one of the most brutal stories I heard was one of the guys that actually was in the Higgins boats, dropping off dudes on D-Day, and he was also the ramp operator, and they had to keep guys going and stuff like that, and it was a nightmare. So he would go back, and he got back to one of the ships after doing like 1 or 2 rounds, and they told him like, you need a break. He's like, yeah, I need a break for a minute. And there's this really big burly guy, and he just gives him a big bear hug. And see, he was already out there as well, so he knew what was happening, and he knew what that guy needed. You know what I'm saying? And the guy told him, said, let me tell you a secret. When those MG42s or those machine guns keep firing, their barrel overheats, and they got to switch out the barrel. Drop the ramp when they're switching the barrel. And then he took that advice. But man, that stuff's hard for a lot of people. And I heard this one story where this guy was literally climbing over people's bodies to try and get through the beach. And the whole way he was apologizing to each one of the people he was climbing over. They were dead, of course. And then there was this other guy.
Really?
They got off the Higgins boats, and his CO was like, "Get behind me! What are you doing?" And the guy got shot in the head, like right when he got behind him. If he didn't get behind the guy, that would have been him that died. Because that bullet, he was actually standing in front of the guy, and the guy said, "Get behind me!" And then he got shot in the head. I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. That's what I thought. There's this one guy that almost died. He was a medic. He was a combat medic on the beach. He was like the first wave, or just before the first wave, trying to help clear out a lot of the mine stuff. This was before the first wave. The first wave came in, and he was helping a man. He was helping people however he could. And there's this one guy he was helping, and he got him out of the spot, and then a ramp. He was trying to save him from getting run over by the boat, and he did. But then the ramp dropped and broke his back.
Oh, fuck.
And he was drowning. And he kept praying that he'd make it. And the ramp lifted and the boat left. And he got sent back on a medical ship. But actually, no, he kept saving people even with a broken back. He had a broken back and was still trying. He was crawling. He was doing anything he could to help save people with a broken fucking back. He even got shot a couple of times. And I heard this man's story and I was like, damn, that's insane. He eventually passed out, and they got him on a medical ship and they sent him back to hospitals and stuff. That's crazy.
That is fucking. Isn't it insane what the human body can do or tolerate?
Yeah, sometimes you get superhuman strength from adrenaline. Like, there's this one time this person was caught in a tornado storm, and this door, he had to shut the door to keep the wind from, you know, and he couldn't. The wind was so strong he couldn't shut it, but the adrenaline started hitting him, and he got the ability to shut the door from the superhuman strength.
I don't know how or where I learned this, but if every muscle in the human body works in the same direction, you can lift over 600 tons.
I don't know about that.
Because, oh yeah, if your
With
body,
leverage, you could.
every muscle in your body moves in a different direction, pulling one little thing, one big
Oh,
thing.
I see what you mean.
You have so many muscles doing one thing, but if they all work in one direction, you can lift a fuck ton of weight.
I get what you mean now. I misunderstood you.
Could you imagine
Yeah,
lifting that much fucking weight? That's insane.
yeah. I heard this one story about this guy in Vietnam. He was the last standing member, and he got them all on the helicopters. But get this, his intestines were hanging out, and all kinds. He took like multiple shots, and he was still getting people out. And eventually, he got himself out while all that was happening to his body. Isn't that insane?
That is.
He survived, though. He survived.
That is nuts.
Yeah. There's this one story about a tanker. He went through many different COs in a Sherman tank, by the way. And this one CO that apparently went through 10 tanks before that jumped in and, I'm your new commander, and then immediately got his head blown off by another tank shell.
What would you think you would do? Hypothetically. Like, what would you do if you saw that?
What could
Like, just
anybody
people
do?
all around you getting shot, someone's head getting blown off, someone losing a fucking leg.
The guy telling the story already went through a few tanks before that, too. I mean, they don't talk about this a whole lot, but the tanker situation was desperate. They were so low on people to use tanks, they were pulling infantrymen to try and figure out how to use these tanks. There's this one documentary about the Canadians in Normandy, and there's this part where they come face to face with a tiger around a corner, and they technically can't see it because it's a hedgerow position, and they start shooting at it, and it fires, and the sheer force of violence of this gun created a canoe through the top of the turret. It's like someone just took a match and struck it across the turret and just cut a slat out of the top. And the guy said the co-driver didn't know how to drive, so I jumped down there and grabbed it and pulled it back. Well, after I found out about the riflemen and shit being pulled out of the service, and they didn't really know how to use this stuff, I made the connection. That's because that guy was a rifleman. That's why he didn't know how to drive.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's a really good documentary. It's called Greatest Tank Battles of History. I can send it to you if you want to see it.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Because they also interviewed some of the German tankers that are still alive too. Because no matter what side they were on, they were fighting for various reasons.
You're going to have a
Like,
movie quest in your transactions. Go ahead and complete that. It's going to be worth about $10,000. Just go ahead and complete that.
There was this division that they came up with altered BF-109s, called the Ramrod Division. Their existence was to try and ram B-17s, and they enlisted. There were no conscripts in the Luftwaffe. And the reason why is because they all had personal reasons to try and defend their homeland because of all the bombings. They saw their families getting blown apart. They saw children, women, old people. They were motivated to try and help stop it. It doesn't matter what propaganda they were fed, or
Yeah.
whatever. At that point, it doesn't matter. They just wanted to stop. And nobody,
And
there
that
was
though.
there was a lot of volunteers to join the Luftwaffe, especially after the bombing raids started. I don't know about before, but there definitely must have been quite a bit afterwards, you know what I mean? So, but the ramming program wasn't for kamikaze. It was to create a battering ram. I forgot what they called it. So the point was is that they'd have a stripped down BF-109, one machine gun with like 60 shots. They removed all the armor, and they would climb and dive on the B-17, and they would aim for the spot just behind the wings and the fuselage. That's the weakness to a B-17. If you hit there, it'll snap in half.
Really?
Yeah, and they would have to jump out and survive. But a lot of them had to play some. The fellow that they interviewed for one of the people that survived that ordeal that they had for whenever they rammed into a B-17. Because in the scenario that they gave in the video, there was actually interviews of the people that was still alive left over from that one that got rammed. And then that German guy that survived it, he had to play dead for a while because the P-51s and stuff would shoot the parachutes.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it is. So he had to wait until almost the last minute to use the parachute after I think they said it was 2,000 feet.
That's fucking sketchy. No. Hell no.
Yeah. But yeah, about everyone survived. But yeah, it didn't make much of a difference. There was still too many B-17s and stuff, B-24s and all that. Some people get mad in War Thunder, and then they're like, "Oh, a B-17 tail shouldn't be able to just come off." First of all, it's got a weak point right there in the center. Second, there's interviews with B-17 crews. There's this one really good one that I watched. This documentary specifically followed one crew throughout their entire tour. You see, in real life, you weren't considered a real crew member until after you survived a week. The death rate of a B-17 crew member was so high that you didn't technically count as a real living crew member until you survived after a week because of that.
Didn't make sense.
So these guys, they got this old beat up B-17 that several crews have been through. The crew is dead, so they gave it to them, a fresh crew. And there's this one part where a BF-109 fired a 20 millimeter shell into the fuselage, and it didn't detonate. It dudded out, and that guy, he became religious after that, because he said if that 20 millimeter single 20 millimeter shell would have detonated, the whole plane would have exploded, and the spot where the shell landed was toward the center back of the fuselage.
Right where that weak point is.
Yeah. Well, right about there, just slightly behind it. And the reason why it would have exploded is for three reasons. It would have torn the fuselage apart for a little bit, and the fumes from the fuel and the air and different stuff mixing together would have caused a chain reaction.
No shit.
So that shell would have blown it apart. Either it was going to be the fuselage or the combination of the fuel and the air. So I guess there's more than one reason why that's a weak spot. I guess I didn't think about that until I learned about the ramming point. I watched that documentary a while back about the ramming point. It's just when you learn more individual things that tie together, it all starts to make more sense of why they say certain things. You know what I'm saying? Because there's been a few times where I've watched.
Unlike the real thing and people being there. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, you can get a really goddamn good idea of something, but
Yeah,
it's just never gonna be close.
it's never the same. Yeah, because it's terrible. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they say in some of the interviews, and then you're like, huh, that's interesting. But then later on, when you learn more about the context of what they're talking about, you find out that that's common knowledge to them, to certain things, so they don't explain what it means, and then you find out what it really means. Like what I mentioned earlier about the guy saying that their co-driver didn't know how to drive very good. He was very politely respecting the guy. I think. I think that's what it was. But that's not the best example. I was trying to think of something because I heard something, a few things, and then after I learned a little bit more about some of the things, it came together because he worded it in a way. But when you got the other piece of the information, you realize what he actually meant. Because to him, it's normal talk, but to us, we don't know the specifics like he did. You know, we didn't go through the training. We don't know what all the different terminology means. So he'll say something in lesser words, but when you learn the context, you'll realize the actual description of what he was inferring towards. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like with the B-17. The tail was just barely, or was it the B-24? Anyways, that's what it was, B-17. The tail was fucked up. Now, he had no elevators, and what he did was he lowered the power to the right engine. Oh, no. He lowered the power to the left engine to create a white turn, but the way he worded it wasn't direct. And since I have a little more knowledge about what some of that stuff means, I figured it out.
Well, I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that would be a thing.
Yeah, and I just find that makes it a whole lot more interesting to me once I figured out that a lot of that stuff, sometimes you'll find stuff under the surface that you didn't realize before when you didn't pick up on it because you didn't recognize it. But yeah, that would be insane, seeing all those people getting blown apart. A lot of people, like on the Higgins boat, would be like crying, you know. The guy that was telling the story, there's like multiple stories. One of the guys was crying, you know, while he was telling the story. He's like, I couldn't even write a memo about it, you know, he said, because when I tried to think about it, I just couldn't deal with it. Because, you know, some people write about it in like a book,
Oh yeah.
in a memoir or whatever. He said, I went to see that movie, Saving Private Ryan, and I left in the beginning. I couldn't even see the whole beginning because it was too real. It was just like how it was back then, and I couldn't watch it. I left, and that struck me. You know, I seen this guy was really broken up, and I'm like, wow, this man has lived with this his whole life. You know, he's seen crazy shit, and he said that Saving Private Ryan D-Day intro was just like how it was when he was there. And this was one of the, I think it was one of the Higgins boat drivers, wasn't it? I don't know. But you know what's even more insane? The demolition men that had to go in before everybody else. They took they took it before anyone else did. Their job was to clear out mines and emplacements to try and make it easier for people to get on the beach. And they
Isn't
had,
that so crazy to know that somebody's job was to die? I
yeah,
mean, you don't
that
say
was
it
the
like
point of
that,
the invasion.
but
That is insane. I was actually watching an interview about kamikazes, and he's like, you know, is one of the gunners trying to stop one, and he's like, you when you see them in the cockpit coming, they're not looking around. They're not no, they're just blank face, looking right at where they're going, and it makes you wonder. It makes you think about what's going on with them. It's just mind-boggling, and it makes sense. Like these people are going to
yeah, it
die, and they
does.
know it. And then you had you know about the rocket ones, right? The rocket kamikazes.
Nope.
So there was multiple kamikaze specific planes that were built and with rocket engines. Had 4 rocket engines. With you had the pilot, and there was a crosshair. The crosshair was for aiming the plane, not for shooting. There was no guns on it. The entire plane was a giant explosive, almost like a giant flying torpedo tube.
Jesus.
Yeah, there was not much you could do about it. And they did some interviews with some people that actually seen it. And it's insane. It's scary, you know. There was one aircraft carrier that was completely destroyed from one kamikaze because people forget the kamikaze isn't just, oh, I'm gonna ram my plane into it and then all hell breaks loose. It's not that simple. That's easy to manage and deal with. I mean, people still get hurt, but what makes the kamikaze so powerful is the explosives they use. They have a bomb strapped to their plane for the sole purpose of using their plane as a projectile to get that bomb through the ship. They're just the steering device. The bomb is what does the damage, not the plane. And this aircraft carrier had a single kamikaze strike through the deck, and it caused a chain reaction. All the planes inside and the fuel started blowing up, and the whole carrier was lost in like 3 minutes or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
That's insane.
it is, right? It was called the something low, aircraft carrier low.
What do you do about like
What's that?
there's so many instances where you just all right, well, we're dead. Whatever. Is what it is now, I guess. There's nothing to
Yeah.
do. Accept your fate and fucking I don't know.
Oh my god. One of the most
Just
infamous.
live through your last fucking moments, I guess.
You've heard about what happened to the USS Hood. Do you know the
Yeah.
details about it though? Like,
Yep. Watch the documentary on that one.
yeah,
Because when I started getting into the ships and War Thunder, Nathan had me watch that. He's like, you need to understand this.
yeah. That is one of the most accept your fate situations. Only 3 people survived that out of like
Really?
over 1,000 and something people. They so the ammo was struck by the Bismarck. The ship was going down in under a minute. It sunk so fast. Only 3 people survived. One of them in the conning tower. and a couple others. While the ship was going down, the front, it broke in half, so the front was coming up and down. While the fucking turret was submerging, this fucking crazy man fired one shot before it fully submerged. They were still fucking firing while it was sinking. Now tell me that is not one of the most badass moments that you can think of when it comes to accepting your fate.
Well, yeah. If I'm gonna
Holy
do that,
shit.
what are we doing War Thunder? When you get shot down in a plane, what do? You hold the motherfucking trigger.
So
You hold the
here's,
goddamn trigger for as long as you can until your plane blows up. Same situation.
yeah, here's another scary fact about sinking ships. When you are escaping a ship that's sinking, you gotta swim for high hell because when a ship goes underwater, it creates a vacuum.
Yep.
And you can drown. Even though you survive the
Which
ship,
is where
you can get pulled
more
under
people drown in the Titanic
by the vortex.
versus
Yeah.
more people drown by getting sucked down with the ship sinking. Yep.
Yeah. The loss of the HMS Hood in history is one of the largest loss of life in any single engagement in naval history. 3 people survived out of like over 1,000 or something.
What the fuck?
And here's a tragedy. The Bismarck, which was right after, when the Bismarck was done, they tried to pick up survivors. And they were scared that a U-boat was watching them, so they had to leave everybody. They only got a few
That's
people
so
from the
fucked up.
Bismarck. Turns out that the submarine was just watching. They weren't gonna do nothing.
Yeah, but how do you know that? You don't.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's funny. It's kind of, that's part of why that makes it even more tragic, you know?
Yeah.
And they weren't even sure if a submarine was watching them or not. But they didn't want to take the chance. They left. They only picked up who they could, and everyone else was left to drown.
Oh boy, there's another big boy.
But here's the thing, though. Like, realistically, the submarine wouldn't have done anything anyway because of there's always this unspoken code among the water goers and plane goers, you know, this sign of respect. Like, those ships were saving their fellow seamen, you know? They wouldn't have, I don't think they would have anyways.
Yeah.
Because, actually, the Germans have done the similar things. So yeah. So the anniversary
It's
of
kind
the
of like after a
HMS.
huge infantry fight, you know, and the day's over, it's like, alright, we're done, we're tired, fuck this. You know, we're not gonna shoot you, you don't shoot us.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's a respect thing.
A lot of people, a lot of German soldiers knew in Normandy, like, even before it got to the point to where it was the Ardennes, they already knew the war was fucked. They just wanted it to be over.
Why is that?
Well, think about it. They're losing ground. They don't have the supplies. They get low on food, ammunition, fuel. Because by the time,
yeah.
because remember, they've been bombed by years. They were bombed for years by that point. Like the British would bomb at night, and the America would bomb during the day. Constant bombing, 24 hours a day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people were fighting just so that they could just try and make it a little easier. And then when the Americans would come and they'd get swarmed, or it would be very obvious that they had a lot of ammunition, and they would reflect on what's going on. They would say, "Yeah, this is fucked. We're done. There's no way we can keep going. We're gonna lose." there's actually this really good book called Soldier Boys that I read in middle school. It's a duality book story. You have a U.S. kid soldier. He wants to enlist. You know the patriotic surge. He was slightly underage, but he got permission. And then you have this kid that was raised in the Hitler Youth. It's like two stories that come together. You don't care much about the spoilers, do you? I guess it doesn't matter at this point.
In what?
In the story. I guess it doesn't matter. I've been telling you all these stories anyway. So, this kid in the Hitler Youth, his name was Dieter. You know, he's raised, the typical propaganda, we're Hitler Youth and all this. He gets to go out into the Western Front. And he meets this very grizzled, experienced German soldier who knows. He knows everything's bullshit. And, he starts teaching the kid, it's about survival. It's not about we're fighting for Germany. There's no Germany out here. There's no Reich. There's no Hitler. You're just trying to survive. So he starts teaching this kid survival techniques, like making sure his socks don't freeze and give him frozen feet and all kinds of stuff. And then you get to see this guy, the American kid going through. You get to see both of them going through training and everything. So there comes a point where I think the kid becomes a medic. Yeah, the American kid becomes a medic. And there's this part where there's this German kid crying out, Schaefer, which is the grizzled soldier's name. Because, by the point this happens, you've had the whole book to get to know all these characters. So you're like, oh shit, is that the grizzled guy? And it was, actually. So, he died, obviously. So, the kid tries to save the German boy. You hear him crying out at night, and it's like snowy and stuff. He tries to save the German boy because he's a medic. He winds up getting shot by somebody. I don't remember if it was friendly fire or not. And he dies. You find out in the abstract way. So in the letter that was sent to his parents about him dying, they didn't tell anybody that they knew about it. Because in the letter it said he died saving the German. He did save the German boy, by the way. The German boy was actually dying because he got shot. He died saving that boy's life. And so yeah, it intertwines is what ends up happening, and I really loved that story. And I read that back in middle school. It's called Soldier Boys. And because at the end of the book, it shows the humanity behind those things. Because a lot of little things like that happen. Like there was a time where a German and Allied soldiers had to get together to survive. There's this time when they defended a castle together. There's this time where a German pilot went into the sea to save a British pilot from drowning, or an American to save a Japanese, or British to save a German.
Oh, fuck, man. That's so fucked up.
There's this other book I'd also recommend. I keep forgetting the name of it. I found out about it not too long ago, actually. But I read about it in middle school as well. So in the story, it starts off like this. It really sets up a good mystery. So it starts off and it's like he's a college professor, and he says my students believed I was a GI in the war, but the truth is I wasn't. I was actually a Hitler Youth. And so what ends up happening is he's fighting on the Eastern Front. He gets injured. The Russians think he's one of them and take him to a hospital. He realizes where he is after being treated for a while and decides to never speak. Because if they find out he's German, they're going to execute him, you know?
Yeah.
So he starts building this relationship with this nurse. He starts getting where he can walk around and help them do things. One day he ends up burning his hand and screams, "Mein Gott," which is German for "my God." And she gets wide-eyed and he gets wide-eyed, and they end up eloping. They have to run for their lives. They wind up having the Russian army on their tails. They wind up having, I think, some Germans on them too. And they escape to America in the end. It's a real good story, regardless if it's true or not. I'd believe it's true, to be honest with you, from some of the stuff I've heard. Like, I wouldn't doubt that it's true if someone told me that it was. So yeah, it's a real good story. At the end of the book, you know, he escaped to America and they lived happily ever after. You know, he never really got into all that stuff. Oh, I heard this story from this one guy. He was in the comments section of YouTube. His uncle was in World War II, and apparently he had someone that was set up for the program. What was it? It was one of those programs that was going to mean his life, but he wound up getting sick and not going. He got typhoid fever or something. And then he had another one that was part of the kamikaze program. And they wound up becoming friends after the war, and they were fishing together. In 1971. They were fishing together. And after so that's crazy, isn't it? They were both selected for a one-way trip, possibly thing, and they both got sick, and they couldn't make it or some shit like that. But they became friends after the war anyway. That's some strong message, isn't it? That tells you a strong message. So that's why on YouTube, whenever you look at some of these documentaries, you see some of these messages about honoring the German side as well, because a lot of it came down to them just trying to do what they thought was right to defend their homeland at that point. That some of that stuff happened at the beginning of the war. A lot of them were like, "Yeah, we're gonna the Third Reich," you know, or whatever the propaganda told them. But by that point in the war, you know, after Normandy and all that, or after it got to a certain point, that stuff changed, you know.
There's a lot just out the fucking window too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people. Hell, even did you know that Rommel was rebelling against Hitler since the beginning?
Really?
Did you know that? That's why
That's
Rommel
crazy.
was actually in Africa. Him and a lot of Germans didn't believe what Hitler wanted was for best for Germany, because the culture of the Germans back then was to try and do what's best for the country as your fellow brethren.
Yeah.
And of course Rommel was one of those fellows, because that was basically it. And the reason why, when you want to take over a system, you have to start with the children, and that's what they did. The propaganda on the radio and then changing the history in school, you know, just like Stalin. It's typical, kind of like what we're kind of having to deal with here in America for the past 50 years. Was it 70? Anyways. So Rommel actually opposed Hitler, and Hitler at that time, they would go to Africa. Any general that he wanted to get rid of, indirectly, he would send them to Africa. And that's where Rommel made a name for himself. So, Rommel became famous, and he couldn't quite get rid of Rommel. He tried to use him, even though they didn't like each other. Hitler still used Rommel, and Rommel, in his position, didn't have much choice. A lot of the people, see, a lot of things that get overlooked is a lot of the people that were in Germany. I mean, it's either you keep your nose clean and you stick along with the program, or you get executed, or who knows what, you know? You got dudes around, you know, with a very strong pull. Like, let's say one day the police just banded together and had assault rifles and machine guns, and it became the new social norm to wear high tops on your head, and it was mandatory. If you didn't agree, you were going to be put in prison. What would you do? Would you put high tops on your head?
Yep.
That's exactly how it was for a lot of people. A lot of that propaganda you see of him speaking in a speech and stuff was falsified. That was all made into a movie to make it look like he was being praised by millions of people. But in some of those live recordings, you see people not saluting too. So, but you know, it's the appearance of popularity that gets people to also fall in line too. That the propaganda was carefully constructed.
Well, it always is. No matter what you do.
That's basically what the news does now, or has done.
Oh, fuck yeah, they do.
News has been built
If you're
up for
paying
that
attention
forever.
enough, you can they'll twist anything or pressure someone that's not paying attention enough and get the fucking response they want to have out of them. So you
And then
saw
point
this.
the finger.
Well, yeah. See?
Yeah,
This is exactly what
basically.
we thought.
You see, they were murderers. Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you twist things to start becoming the social norm. Is you obfuscate the reality.
We're not a free nation. Like us especially. We're not a free nation. We are conformed into whatever the fuck people want us to be conformed into, because if you divide us and separate us, you can't have a unity. And without a unity, you have control.
Yeah, you see, in the 30s, Hollywood was funded by Russia, so communist Russia. And it's been building ever since then. We actually had a communist coup in the mid to late 30s in California.
Oh, I believe that.
I know it sounds like conspiracy theory stuff, but it's actually historically true. There's footage of it and stuff. And they actually tried doing something similar again.
Oh,
And they
I
actually
gotta
did
take my
interviews.
fucking earpiece out of my radio for a sec, so if it,
Yeah, that's fine.
you may be hearing my radio in the background.
I actually recently, not too long ago, found some interviews that they did with in like the 90s or the 80s with an ex-KGB operative, and he was talking about insurgents in the United States, and you know, he was talking about how it works and all this other stuff. And one of the questions they asked him was, well, would you say that it was a success? And he's like, yeah, far more than a success than they could have ever dreamed. And it's also in Britain too, he said. It's the culture of America and Britain has changed so much to their way of thinking.
Oh yeah,
And the reason
that
why
wouldn't surprise me one fucking bit.
the reason why he was an ex-KGB was because he defected, by the way. He defected
Okay.
like a lot of North Koreans end up doing eventually sometimes. There's a lot of defectors from North Korea.
Gotcha.
They escaped North Korea through South Korea.
Well, I hate to let you go, man, but I gotta get off. They're fucking got shit going on out here, and I need to fucking pay attention to what the hell they're doing.
Okay.
So, all right, man. Well, I will be on tomorrow around the same time. So I will hit you up then. Maybe we'll get together with Ninja and do some fucking Dying Light,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, I'll see you around.
All right, man. We'll catch you later.
You too. Alright, I'm gonna take a break and I'll be